Welcome to UC Claremont's Distance Learning Education tutorial. Today we will discuss the who, what, why, when, where, and how of distance learning. Keep in mind, just like with face-to-face classes, every professor will teach their class slightly differently. Therefore, if you have any questions, please be sure to talk with your professor first. The first thing to consider in distance learning education is who should be taking this class. Distance learning education requires you to be self-motivated. Self-motivated means that you take it upon yourself to ask questions and take the initiative to complete assignments without being reminded. It is essential that you have good time management skills. You're able to keep track of when assignments are due. When multiple assignments are due throughout the week, it is up to you to make sure that you meet these time assignments. Therefore, you must also be organized. You need to make sure that you are calendaring each event, each assignment, or each test for that particular week. Although you will have frequent communication with your professors, it is still up to you as the individual learner to make sure that you are meeting the requirements of the course and getting the most out of this course. And yes, you must be computer literate. That does not mean that you have to be a computer expert. Basic essential skills are required for a distance learning class, such as you must be able to email. You must be able to include an attachment to an email. You must be able to navigate the internet, at least at a basic level, and you need to be familiar with Blackboard. Blackboard is the delivery platform that UC Claremont uses to teach these distance learning education classes. If you are not familiar with Blackboard or you feel like you need more help, there are additional tutorials on how to navigate Blackboard. You can bring yourself up to speed to make sure that you meet these basic computer literacy requirements. Finally, the question is, does this describe you? Your professor is only going to get to know you through what you present in the classroom. Therefore, it is important that you look at yourself to determine, is this something that I think that I can do? Distance learning education can be extremely beneficial. However, you do face challenges that you do not normally face in a face-to-face classroom. It's just a matter of getting to know these challenges and overcoming them to be successful. So the next question, what is a distance learning class? Distance learning is not a correspondence course. Distance learning requires that you are actively participating in the class. It is not self-paced. It is not a class that you can enter into the fourth week of a 10-week term and expect to simply be able to catch up. It requires frequent participation every week, just like as if you were going to class 3 days a week in a face-to-face class. You should be participating at a minimum with that frequency in a distance learning class. Distance learning is active learning, not passive learning. In a face-to-face class, although perhaps you should not have, there have been those days that we've sat back and simply listened. Distance learning education requires you to actively participate. If you are not posting discussion on the discussion board or participating in blogs with your professor or fellow students, there's no way for the professor to be able to identify that you are participating in the class. Therefore, with distance learning classes, participation is absolutely required and essential to learning. That commitment takes about 5 to 10 hours per week, depending on your reading ability, but also your ability to type, certainly, and digest the information will depend on how much time you're actually spending. Many people think that distance learning is going to be easier than face-to-face learning. That's not the case. It does require a good time commitment. You can anticipate, depending on the course, between 5 to 10 hours per week. You do need computer and internet access up to about 5 days per week. Again, your individual professor will determine the basic requirements as to how many days per week you must be online, but you can anticipate that you will need to be online with great frequency. Finally, course textbooks are still required. Although you may have different types of textbooks, for instance, ebooks, or you may be renting your book, you still need that book in order to participate in this class. Your professor may make the decision to use outside or online resources, but that is up to the individual professor. So why would you want to take an online or distance education class? The number one reason we hear from most students is the flexibility. Many of us are working, have families that take our time during the day. Distance learning does afford the opportunity to be able to participate at any given time during the day. Frequently, I've had my students who log in at 2 o'clock in the morning because that's when they have the time to participate in class. For other students, it's a matter of a disability. For some, it's a matter of not wanting to travel the distance that is necessary to come on campus. Whatever the reason is, distance learning does provide unique opportunities to be able to get an education where sometimes it would otherwise be impossible. So when does distance learning take place? There are several approaches that your professor may adopt when teaching the distance learning class. The first is called synchronous learning. Synchronous learning is where the class will meet online at a specified date and time. For instance, the class may meet on Fridays at 9 o'clock for an online discussion. Very often that may take place in the context of an instant messaging chat room, or you may use a program called Illuminate, which allows the professor to be able to show different information on the screen. Synchronous learning requires the entire class to be one place at a certain time. The opposite of synchronous is asynchronous. With asynchronous learning, you can participate in the class any time of the day. You will still be required to participate every week of the course, and usually a minimum number of times, but it can take place any time throughout the day, either early in the morning, late at night, or any time in between. A third option that your professor may use is a hybrid course. Hybrid courses will be held both online and in person. Your professor will set dates where you will be expected to be on campus and participate in a face-to-face traditional class. Other times, you will be online, either synchronously or asynchronously. All of these options have different benefits. Depending on the class and how your professor chooses to teach it, you will be experiencing some sort of these types of delivery. So how do you know where your class will be held? Well, you find distance education courses on OneStop. OneStop has designated all distance education courses with a globe. Depending on how the class is going to be delivered, there may be special instructions on that particular class. For instance, in the first example, there are no special instructions. That is an indicator that this class is completely online. The second example, still denoted with a globe, notes that there are special online or special instructions for this particular class. This class is an example of a hybrid class. It is going to be meeting both in the classroom and online. The final example is another example of a hybrid class. It will show class has both classroom and online components. You will see some classes that denote that only the test itself will be face-to-face. All of these distance education courses, though, will always be indicated with that globe in order to let you know that this is an online class that falls under the distance education program at UC. Our final question is how? How do I take a distance education course? Most classes will be delivered through Blackboard. There are tutorials available through this particular organization called Distance Learning Training to be able to teach you how to excel in using Blackboard. Also, be sure to review your own course's syllabus for required competencies. So after reviewing all of these questions, my final question is, are you ready to trade the classroom for the world? With distance education, you can be anywhere and still benefit from learning from UC Claremont. Good luck with your classes, and I hope you enjoy the experience of